Coming up in This Week in Computer Hardware, Surface Book 2016, 9 MSI gaming laptops, Intel's pulling Wi-Fi and USB into the chipset, VRMark and Daydream VR are here. All that and more coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twitch.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 389, recorded November 10th, 2016. Cheaper NVMe and Daydream VR. This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by iFixit. You've seen their teardowns all over the internet, the free repair guide for everything, and the ultimate marketplace for electronic tools and parts. For $5 off your purchase of $10 or more, go to ifixit.com/twitch and enter the code TWITCH at checkout. Welcome to Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, Twitch's weekly show that aims to bring you the most useful, most informative, most engaged, most delightful, and quite possibly most useful hardware information on the planet. Mobile, DIY, desktop, laptops. We love them all, people. And today I'm going to be loving all the hardware with Mr. Allyn Malventano of PCPer.com because Ryan is once again flying somewhere. Welcome, Allyn.
Yeah, Ryan is out. Some undisclosed location. It's funny. I used to be in the military. I used to be in the undisclosed location. Well, now it's Ryan. Oh, well.
That's a good thing. But Ryan's not actually secret squirreling. We're just not talking about where he's going because it could reveal what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Where he's at. That would involve, I don't know, lawsuits, mayhem, emotional trauma, being cut off from press releases in the future. It's all really bad. Any exciting news in the world of storage? I noticed you had a link to Newegg about NVMe drives getting cheaper. Is that true?
Josh's pick of the week was 600 Intel 600p was pretty darn cheap. Price was coming down a little bit. I think you're going to start seeing holiday season, reduced pricing on some of these things coming out. There's also we know that the Samsung 960 Evo is probably going to hit the market shortly. Like it was already launched, and that was a few weeks ago. We're just kind of waiting for them to actually start volume shipment, and those are supposed to be pretty respectable performance for prices that are similar to the bargain basement ones right now. So. All those other guys are kind of going to have to reduce their prices to be more competitive with what is probably going to be the performance per dollar out of the 960 Evos. It's
kind of a random question, but if you're building a bargain system, is there any point to pay the additional cost for an NVMe drive? Like if you're not doing things that are fantastically read and write dependent for NVMe?
Not really. As a matter of fact, I frequently recommend even now, if you wanted to go bargain basement now with an easier upgrade path to kind of expand your storage and expand your storage's performance, I'm still recommending something like 850 Evo, just like a single one for the whatever capacity you can get away with to have what you want on your system initially, and then later on down the road, as long as you have any decent Intel motherboard with rapid storage technology. Set up from the get-go. In other words, you put the motherboard in RAID mode before you set your whole system up, even if you're not going to use RAID. You'll have a single 850 Evo on there initially. You add a second one later. As long as you have a good backup regime, you can get away with putting them in RAID 0, and you effectively double the storage performance and double the capacity at the same time just by adding a second one of those drives. And it is possible with NVMe, but those motherboards are much more pricey. The motherboards that support RAID NVMe SSDs versus basically every motherboard that's out there supports SATA RAID SSDs. And it's not even a cost premium at this point. It's just that's what's in every motherboard. So yeah, it's basically for effectively $0. You just have that upgrade path, and you can actually get. I've been doing some. I haven't published on it yet, but I've been doing some behind the scenes, like try some SATA RAID performance on our new test suite compared to NVMe performance. Of just like single NVMe drives and even rated NVMe. But, 2 or 3 SATA SSDs in a good RAID, decent SATA SSDs are roughly equivalent to a single NVMe drive. So, you can keep that good cost per gig of the lower cost SATA products. You get rid of paying the premium, but you can still get effectively the same performance.
Interesting. Samsung 850 Evo prices, if you're curious, now starting at 250 gigabytes for $94.99, 500 gigabytes for $169. 1 terabyte is down to $314.90, and I am deeply saddened to say that the 4 terabyte model is temporarily out of stock. But the 2 terabytes, a mere $625.
Yeah, it scales very linearly, because it's the cost of the flash, really.
Right.
The cost of the controller is almost negligible when you get up in prices that are that high, because there's so much just raw capacity on the drive. So those other costs are kind of like it's all just the flash that you're paying for there, and that's kind of sort of a fixed price. It's just based on production now.
I don't know, man. 4 1 terabyte drives are $315, and 1 4 terabyte drive is $1,500. I'm not sure the math works on that. But yeah, memory. The enclosure cost doesn't change, except maybe for that 4 terabyte one. I kid people. Yep. Samsung basically says, we're really sorry. An important tenet of our mission is to offer best-in-class safety and quality. Recently, we fell short on this promise. For this, we are truly sorry. We will re-examine every aspect of the device, including all hardware, software, manufacturing, and the overall battery structure. We will move as quickly as possible, but we will take the time needed to get the right answers, which unfortunately Samsung didn't do earlier this summer with the Note 7.
Yeah. Good on them, though. That's not a cheap ad.
No, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it's I don't know if I don't know at this point if taking out a full page ad in the Wall Street Journal is about talking to your user base or talking to Wall Street.
It's kind of a little bit to Wall Street and a little to, I would imagine the demographic that's still faithfully reading those papers is also the same demographic that would kind of have a chip on their shoulder if they owned one of those devices and had to do the recall or, had a bad experience or whatever, right? It's a little of both. It's kind of there's kind of a big overlap in those two demographics, Wall Street and newspaper reading folk, right?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Interesting thought, but 85% of the potentially flaming phones have been basically are in Samsung's hands now. So certainly they have all the hardware they could possibly need to try to figure out what was going wrong, I hope. Not a huge amount of fanfare or notice about the launch of the Surface Book 2016. Not an inexpensive laptop. Last year they introduced the first one. This one is pretty crazy, right? Microsoft's claiming twice the graphics power, a second fan, batteries rated for 12 or 16 hours, depending on the configuration, and it is $2,400. And Dana Wollman over at at Engadget, I apologize, Engadget. Dana Wollman over at Engadget points out that it is actually even heavier than last year's model.
Yeah,
and it's probably top heavy.
There's probably more heat pipe action going on in there to help get rid of the extra heat generated from the increased. Yeah, if you have a second fan, that implies you have a second heatsink, at least, right? Or or not heatsink, but just fins that are right next to the other end of the heat pipe. Then getting rid of the heat. Yeah. So it's going to be a little bit more heavier, but there's nothing groundbreaking there aside from the performance changes. Like, it's still the same form factor. They didn't really change any of that stuff. But don't get me wrong, though. It's a good design. Nothing really wrong with it. So not a lot to really change there in the first place.
On their battery test, when you look at Engadget's battery test, 2015 Dell XPS 13 is 7 hours and 36 minutes. Apple's MacBook, the 2016 version, 8 hours and 45 minutes. Asus ZenBook 3, 9 hours and 45 minutes. HP Spectre X360, the 15-inch version, 10 hours and 17 minutes. And then the Surface Book with the performance base is 16 hours. It's the keyboard. And then the regular Surface Book is running in tablet-only mode 13 hours and 54 minutes. So
I feel like that's almost, if you're going to drag around that much stuff, it's almost better to just drag around something that can charge it instead for when you really need 16 hours.
I don't know.
Right?
It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
If you detach the keyboard, you get like 4 hours in their battery life test. So the keyboard's pretty critical to have on the keyboard / giant battery pack.
Maybe they're
3:2 aspect ratio. Oh, go ahead.
Maybe they're throwing more battery in the keyboard to try to add more weight to the keyboard, as opposed to for the battery life aspect. But maybe you just want the keyboard to be heavier to offset the extra weight of the tablet, which now has all of the guts that's hanging off of the back, right?
Their battery life at this point is pretty crazy pants. I think that's an intentional decision to have crazy pants battery life. I mean,
Probably,
this is like 1.5 to 2 times what some of the premier and best loved laptops are delivering. But it's also heavier and it's also incredibly expensive. So interesting stuff. If you're out there looking for a top of the line laptop, boy, more people are getting more and more angry about the MacBook Pros not really being professional and just being I was interesting. I just spread some more reviews on those, and people are just like, these aren't Pro anymore. They're just the more expensive MacBooks.
Isn't
frustrated developers.
Isn't the other issue that like there's not even an SD card slot on them anymore?
SD card
stuff
slot
like that, right? It's like you're getting rid of the stuff that the pros are going to use. Like, if you're a pro, you don't want to have to drag around an SD card reader. Like if it's something you're used to having been in every prior laptop that you were using, right?
The outcry was so vicious. Apple actually reduced the prices of their USB-C dongles.
I just feel like they're really encroaching on the whole tipping point of backlash, outweighing whoever it is decision to reduce the number of ports to 0 on the thing, right? There's obviously some kind of push internally to like, we want these things as clean as possible. Get rid of the headphone jack on the iPhone. Right. Get rid of all the SD card. It's like, I'm sorry. There's eventually a point where people are like, no, we need to connect things to the thing. It's
Go ahead. You're reactionary. Stay in the past, Alan.
Yeah, I guess it's all wireless. Yeah, even our SD cards are wireless now, right?
Yeah, so, he says while looking at the key on the cable on his keyboard and his headset, because that's all I'll say about that. Were you in the room when Ryan shot the epic MSI gaming laptop overview?
I was. I've been in the room. I've been in the room as he has slaved away over like trying to run benchmarks on 9 laptops at the same time, right? Because
this is crazy. These are like 14-inch to 18-inch screens. The weight runs from anywhere from 3.75 to 12 pounds.
See, you
GTX
have to realize
1060s, 1070s, and 1080s.
So realize the line from MSI is actually way more than 9 machines. The 9 machines we tested were just a sampling, which is funny. But we wanted to kind of distill the lineup into something that could just be something that, hey, I'm interested in buying an MSI laptop. Oh my goodness! Like, look at the list of all the different available models that they have. Where do I even choose? Where do I even start? Well, that's what Ryan tried to distill down into, just I think less than 30-minute video. The amount of work that went into that video on the back end, it was pretty staggering, because when we test GPUs or when I test SSDs, we have a given test system set up for whatever that purpose is, and we kind of pass the various things through it. And for video stuff, we might have to rerun the same test over and over again and stuff like that. But when it comes to laptops, the system, you can't just like swap out the stuff onto another system. Like, the laptop is the system. So Ryan and actually Ken helped out too, like had to go and set up our test setup, like install everything onto each of those laptops. Thank goodness we have gigabit. Because we're basically just saturate our network connection for God knows how long. Pulling all that stuff down. We wanted to test this and this game. Okay, well, we got to pull it down from Steam on 9 different laptops. Just took a while, but I think that video ended up being just a great kind of summary of like, hey, I'm interested in this. This is what I'm looking for. Point me in the right direction. And then after that video, at least you'll be reduced to, a handful of the models, and you're just choosing, simple things like how much storage capacity do I want, or maybe little tweaks after that.
Little tweaks.
Yeah.
Moving from little tweaks to big tweaks. Digitimes is reporting that Intel looks like they're going to be adding Wi-Fi and USB 3.1 support into the next generation chipsets. The 300 series chipsets that are going to be showing up at the very end of this year. Intel declined to comment to Digitimes. The sources for this are motherboard makers, which leaves me to believe they're probably very accurate. That's going to negatively impact life over at AsMedia and a couple other companies, but I'll be really curious, to see what the mixture of USB ports is on the next round of motherboards as we go into 2017. And I should say the 300 series chipsets are coming out at the end of 2017, not 2016. But be interesting to see like what else Intel can suck into the chipset and what that's going to do for overall performance. But Broadcom is probably really unhappy if they're going to be pulling Wi-Fi into the chipset.
Well, I mean, as we've been testing stuff, we've seen as far as USB 3.0 goes, or almost anything if you look at past history for connectivity in chipsets versus the add-in controllers after the fact, that once Intel gets around to integrating the thing, whatever that thing may be, it's generally better performing and more compatible. Intel is like one of the biggest ones as far as all of the validation testing and all of the compatibility testing that they do behind the scenes on any given thing. It's probably part of the reason that they're always so long to implement these things in their chipsets, right? Mm-hmm. You can almost bet that they had some form of a USB 3.1 controller probably more than a year ago and have been just testing it and revising it ever since. And it's not production ready. It's not going to get into the chipset. So AsMedia has been good. It's been a good performing part. It's on plenty of boards. It's reasonably compatible. I don't often run into performance issues when I'm testing various things on AsMedia. It's been pretty good. So I'm glad to see that the third party stuff has kind of ratcheted up a little bit on their compatibility and their performance. But at the end of the day, once the stuff gets incorporated into the chipset, makes for simpler motherboards, less chips on the motherboard. You can make the motherboard smaller. You can use that extra space to put other stuff on there, right? In that respect, it's kind of better to consolidate some of these things into the chipset.
Wait with bated breath. It's interesting. I just, realizing the difference in bandwidth between USB 2 and USB 3.0 ports. More bandwidth on all the chips. USB 3 for everything. It's a dream.
Yeah, and there's an awful lot of stuff that, the USB 3.0 and 3.1 is still kind of like a mixed bag as far as the majority of things that use USB that claim like USB 3.1. It's still 5 gigabit, which is still the speed of USB 3.0. Right. So it's like, Yeah.
It's not iFixit, people. This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware brought to you by iFixit, with more than 22,000 free repair guides and 90,000 troubleshooting solutions. The good people at iFixit.com are experts on consumer electronics repair. I've seen their office. They are amazing, and they want to fix all the things. That's why iFixit provides all the repair knowledge you need for free. They also sell a wide array of parts and tools to help you get the job done. They know what they're doing, so they built a toolkit that does too. The ProTech Toolkit. It is ready to fix all the things. A completely reimagined design, but just as rugged and portable as before. This kit shows their obsession with detail. It is great. Durable canvas case, some really nice, high-quality steel bits. They actually added more of them into the kit, custom anodized aluminum handle. As somebody who spent a lot of time playing with screwdrivers, these are nice, people. They thought of everything. So all you have to worry about is the fix. And isn't that troublesome enough, people? They got iFixit 64-bit driver kit, precision ESD-safe tweezers, including a pair of reversed tweezers that make it super easy to pick things up, a wide variety of plastic opening tools and picks to safely work on tablets and smartphones so you don't break it when you're trying to get it open, a suction cup for display assembly removal, a metal spudger, and iFixit's own rubber-handled Jimmy pry tool, which I just used a couple days ago in a child's toy repair. It was touch and go, people, but the Jimmy pry tool got it open and we got it fixed, and the 4-year-old is happy. The ProTech Toolkit is the last precision toolkit you'll ever need, and that's why the ProTech Toolkit is backed by a lifetime guarantee. They've got the guides, they've got the quality, they've got the lifetime guarantee. Good stuff going on at iFixit. And look, man, the people at iFixit never stop repairing. And with this toolkit under your belt, you won't either. Head over to ifixit.com/twit and use the code TWiCH at checkout to save $5 on your purchase of $10 or more. Even if you don't buy anything, you can still use their free repair guides, troubleshooting answers forum, and other educational resources on their website anytime your tech has an accident. We want to thank iFixit for their support. And I personally want to thank iFixit for those guides because they are incredibly useful. Getting deep inside and figuring out how to fix things. Pretty awesome, people. ifixit.com/twit. And do us a favor. Use the code TWICH at checkout. You'll save $5 off your order, and you'll be supporting This Week in Computer Hardware. Thank you. Something unusual happened over at the Apple Store. Mac Rumors spotted that the refurbished store where they basically sell like closeouts, refurbished models. They actually are selling refurbished iPhone 6s and 6s Plus models. So it drops the 16 gigabyte iPhone 6s about $449, and 6s Plus starts at $529. That's like $100 less than the brand new iPhone 6s and 6s Plus. In case you're shopping for one of those, I have actually used Apple's refurbished product store. I bought at least 2 laptops and a couple of tablets through there, and have had pretty good luck with that. VRMark is here. If you've been dying to benchmark your system and its VR awesomeness or lack thereof, FutureMark's VRMark dropped last week. I can get it from Steam, you can get it directly from FutureMark. The basic version is free with the Orange Room. And for $20, you get the Advanced Edition with the Blue Room. And the Blue Room in the Advanced Edition is if your system kicks the snot out of the Orange Room, the Blue Room is basically going to give your hardware something much harder to push around. They can be used to run a standard benchmark or experience mode, so you can get a kind of a feel for the headset's reprojection performance, quotes, as well as spatial audio and an interactive flashlight to test the lighting. Jeremy wrote that up on PCPer.com. So basically like, VRMark Basic, if you want to find out if you're HTC Vive or Oculus Rift ready, you basically look at the benchmark performance. You get to explore the Orange Room, and for $20, you get to take a look at much more detailed results, the hardware monitoring charts, and really hammer down on your system with the Blue Room. Man, oh man, I bet you wish you took the red pill. So, man, Daydream VR reviews are starting to come out. That's the soft, face-friendly strap-on replacement for cardboard. As somebody who's used several variations on the cardboard design, I'm down with the Google Daydream. Not that I don't know if I'm down with VR off of a phone, but this at least looks significantly more comfortable to wear. Addie Robertson wrote that up over at The Verge. $79. The only downside right now is I thought it was going to work with more phones, but it's only currently working with the Pixel and Pixel XL, which I'm not particularly surprised. And the other thing that happened is they actually launched the new VR interface for YouTube in time with the launch of the Daydream. So looking good so far. And, it's smaller and lighter and more portable than the Gear VR, writes Ari, and its design keeps the lenses relatively protected during travel, which is kind of a big deal. And it's very stylish. Excuse me, Adi, not Ari. My apologies, Mr. Mr. Robertson. Yeah, I don't know. It's be interesting to see, what comes out with that in the games at launch. We're going to be reviewing that on Tech Thing shortly when Shannon gets hers to go along. Oh, that's the remote control. We'll be testing that too. Shannon's getting one to go along with her Google Pixel XL, which she has fallen in love with and will never give up. So she didn't expect to like the phone that much. And then she's like, it's so much faster than my Nexus. And I was like, you're done. You're keeping it. And she did. Oh, man. Sebastian wrote up Corsair's Carbide. It's really funny. The title of this is Corsair Carbide Air 740 High Airflow ATX Cube Case Review. This is a really interesting looking case.
This
is it an expensive case?
Actually, I don't remember what the price. I think it was reasonable. But this is just a kind of a new design spin on. We've actually seen these cases before. The Carbide Air used to be much more squared off and flat looking.
Yeah, it was a cube.
But it's a case. Yeah, it's the case that looks more cubish in shape, and it has a partition in the middle, and your motherboard and all the visible stuff goes on the left side there from the front, and then. Right. They give you another several inches of space behind the motherboard plate. Everything all in there. But yeah, if you look there, there's the back. So there's an awful lot of room there. That's where you install all your drives and everything. And then on the front, you get a nice clean look of just motherboard, GPU, coolers, and whatnot. We like these. They're definitely sweet cases. We've used a couple of them in the past, even for production stuff. Like I think for a while we dragged a Carbide Air to QuakeCon as like a remote rendering machine,
right?
A couple times. $150 for this one.
Not bad, not cheap.
Yeah,
cheaper than Case Labs. Sebastian notes that component noise output is high due to the high airflow design. So it's not the quietest case he's seen, but it looks really, really easy to work inside of. It's a pretty case. Pretty and stylish. I like it. And gets the Rockin' Gold Award from PC Perspective. Huawei announces the Mate 9 smartphone with Kirin 960 and dual lens Leica camera. So we have another dual lens camera. Again, I think Sebastian's doing the review on this one. Basically, the Kirin 960 system on a chip is the latest ARM Cortex architecture in an 8-core Big Little design. It's got the Mali G71 MP8 graphics. So that should be significantly better in the gaming performance than the predecessor was, the Kirin 950 on that processor. 5.9-inch full HD display, 2.5D glass. I'm really curious to see what the battery life is going to be like on this one. 4 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of storage, micro SD card slot supporting up to 256 gigabytes if you use the secondary SIM slot. The front camera is 8 megapixels with a and then the main camera is a dual 20 megapixel monochrome plus 12 megapixel RGB f2.2 camera with optical image stabilization, which is either going to be a fantastic camera or an incredibly complicated gadget that doesn't work very well. We will know more when the full review comes out on that one, but be interesting to see how Huawei does with that dual camera. I think it's interesting, right? They're going for a monochrome, high contrasty kind of camera and a secondary lens to add the color in on that one.
Yeah, you get better resolution if you configure a sensor to, not have a color mask on it, basically. So if you just have a pure black and white sensor, you take all that raw resolution, and you're actually like multiplying the actual resolution of the photo that you get. And then you take the color stuff and you kind of add some color detail to the resulting photo. End result, it's kind of a hybrid photo, but yeah, it should be a higher resolution and more clear photo.
Right. Nothing wrong with being clear. Snapchat, we mentioned they're going to be doing their head-mounted video capturing glasses. Well, they're glasses, right? Glasses are generally head-mounted. I'm going to state more obvious things later in the podcast so they don't cut me off. Snapchat's going to sell its new video capturing glasses, apparently in very, very small amounts out of vending machines, right? Everybody's really excited in the Snapchat world about spectacles. Those were announced back in September. We talked about those. But apparently they're going to drop a vending machine on Venice Beach, writes Recode. And people can sort of, try them on virtually by standing in front of the machine. And apparently they're not going to have a whole lot of them for sale. So they're going to announce Snapbot locations 24 hours before they appear. Then you can find out when and where the thing's going to pop up, and the glasses are going to cost $130. Quote, they will likely only sell a few thousand of these things this fall, so keep your eyes on Snapchat. Well, I should say Snap, formerly Snapchat, if you want a pair of their fancy new glasses. So you've been testing one of the most outrageous earbud sets on the planet.
Yeah, they're kind of pricey. Let me. I had the cord.
The KSE 1500 electrostatic earphone system by the people at Shure.
It's pretty crazy. So you have
electrostatics don't travel well because they require very high voltage to run.
Yes, so you need a special amp just to drive them. Just drive these tiny earbuds. Camera doesn't want to focus, but you get the point. Pretty dang small.
It's an amp, it's a DAC, and it's basically punching 250 volts into your ears if memory serves.
Yeah, it's definitely a higher voltage because it's electrostatics. Basically, it acts like a high voltage capacitor. Mm-hmm. Except part of the capacitor is actually a moving part.
Right.
And the advantage is that you're talking a super thin element. The actual thing that does the moving is just a very thin sheet. And a diaphragm there in that photo, and it's just, or in that video, and these things sound incredibly transparent. It's basically that's the best word I can use for them. It's just like you're not listening to speakers. You're just this is one of the few things where if I pull up some, I have a couple of recordings that are like, symphony orchestra stuff that's recorded in particular halls where I've actually listened to an orchestra play, like in person. And these are just a set of earbuds that if you're just listening to that content and you put these things on, you close your eyes, you're there. I mean, there's really just, you're picking out every little detail. Every things, the way things are bouncing off walls that you were able to understand from having been there in person. It's one of those things where it's so dang accurate.
Yeah, there's a lot of resolution, a lot of detail. Like a planar magnetic, they have planar magnetic. They use metal conductors on the surface of the diaphragm to move the diaphragm and create the waves of air that go into your ear. With electrostatics, the diaphragm itself is electrically charged material, and that's part of where they get an incredible level of neutrality. Like $3,000 sounds pretty crazy for a set of earbuds, and it is. But compared to a set of Stax headphones, they've kind of been the flagship in electrostatics. It starts looking kind of reasonably priced because I think Stax are still selling for like $6,000 a pair. And it's
now,
Mr.
I will
Speakers.
I will say there are kind of limits. Like the ultimate volume you can reach with these is not as high as with standard earbuds. Right. Most standard earbuds, they do start to distort. The distortion is not necessarily a result of like because of the driver. It's just because you can only generate so much of a static charge. The system was only designed to go so high. You still get to very, very reasonably loud volumes, listening volumes, but just not as loud as you can get some of the other things. So if you're a real metalhead kind of guy, you really want to crank everything. These may not be for you. But I will say this though, bass response surprisingly good for something that's an electrostatic driver. Historically, electrostatic drivers have been weak in that area, and there's plenty of like really, really high-end home stereos that have used electrostatic drivers where they still had to have an actual like physical subwoofer, like a standard subwoofer as part of the kit. Right. These are doing all that with just one driver in each ear. It's just one super, super sensitive, wafer thin, not even wafer thin.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
just, there's only so many words I can use to describe these things. It's one of those things where you really just have to have sat down and listened to them in a quiet room and had really good content to listen to. That's the other key. I am able to almost instantly pick out the difference between any form of like even kind of higher bitrate MP3 compression versus lossless with these things. It's one of those things where the higher the quality of the the device you're using to listen to that audio stream, the better you can pick out if you're able to perceive those differences. It's very. I have to like willfully try to not be listening for MP3 artifacts with these things in order to enjoy MP3 music. So, if you want like it's probably just the benchmark of like studio monitors, really. Like you're just if you're developing music or anything like that, you're working on stuff, you want to hear exactly what that stuff's going to sound like in an ideal scenario. That's it. That's the way to listen to them.
It is one interpretation, and we will get into that conversation at another date. Because everybody, you remember, everybody's eardrums are different, everybody's ear canals are different, and that radically changes the way you hear things. And
that's true. Yeah.
It's good stuff, though. I thought it was funny because you went back to your 846s and you were like, ugh.
Yeah.
And those are pretty nice earbuds.
Yeah. It turned out I had to change the tuning on my 846s because there were aspects of that when I was sitting down and I gathered a whole bunch of like really high end kind of HD tracks, other recordings to just sit down and do the like kind of A/B listening back and forth, and then because I had that really high quality source material to listen to, that's when I would go back to the 846s and be like, something's wrong here. Like these things should be doing better than because those are $1,000 set of earbuds. They should at least be $1,000 worth of audio quality. And turned out I had to do some tweaks to actually dial them in a little bit better. But I'm glad that the newer set, the electrostatic, kind of forced me to do that tuning of the other set. So in the end, it was a win-win.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you are having a win-win listening to This Week in Computer Hardware. If you want to find more of Mr. Malventano's work, you should head over to PCPer.com, where he works day in and day out, wailing on the benchmarks with Mr. Ryan Shrout. And, of course, you can find me at TechThing.com. And I had a lovely conversation on TechThing this week talking to Ryan about what GPU you should buy from pretty much $100 up to I want to spend all the money. It's exciting stuff. If you haven't heard This Week in Computer Hardware before, ladies and gentlemen, let me A, welcome you, and B, tell you to head over to twit.tv, twit.tv/TWICH, twit.tv/Twitch, where you'll find all of our older episodes and information on how to subscribe. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are all out of This Week in Computer Hardware. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Allyn Malventano.
We'll see you next week.